The credit card statement in my hand showed 3 hotel charges. Same hotel, same dates. Gerald told me he was at conference meetings in Atlanta. But here's the thing that made my hands start shaking. There were 2 room service charges each time. 2 breakfasts. 2 dinners. My husband of 37 years wasn't eating alone. I'm 68 years old. I raised 4 children in this house. I taught Sunday school for 20 years at Rising Star Baptist Church. I made Gerald's favorite peach cobbler every Sunday after service, and I pressed his shirts even after my arthritis started acting up real bad. And here I was, holding proof that he'd been spending our money, my retirement money that I'd saved from working double shifts as a nurse for 30 years, on hotel rooms with somebody else. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer because my mind was spinning so fast I could barely think straight, but the number showed it was from Henderson and Associates, the law firm Daddy's neighbor, Mrs. Chen. No, wait, I need to get this right. Mrs. Okafor, Daddy's neighbor, had told me about 6 months back when Daddy's health started failing. Mrs. Washington? The voice was gentle, like they knew they were about to deliver bad news. This is attorney Bernard Okafor calling about your father, Clarence Hayes. I'm very sorry to inform you that he passed away yesterday evening. I should have felt something. Daddy and I hadn't spoken in almost 15 years, not since Mama's funeral when he told me I was foolish for staying with Gerald after that first time Gerald got caught with his secretary. Daddy said I had no spine, said I was wasting my life. We hadn't exchanged a word since. Mrs. Washington, are you still there? Yes, I managed. I'm here. Your father left specific instructions. He made you the sole beneficiary of his estate. I need you to come to my office today if possible. There are time-sensitive matters we need to discuss. I hung up the phone and looked back at that credit card statement. 3 hotels, 6 meals for 2, and now Daddy was gone, and after all these years of silence, he'd left everything to me. That's when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anybody. Gerald was supposed to be at work, or at least that's what he'd told me this morning when he kissed my forehead and said he'd be home late because of inventory. I walked to the door, still holding that credit card statement, and looked through the peephole. My heart stopped. Gerald was standing on my porch, and right next to him, close enough that their shoulders were touching, was Yvette Richardson. My best friend of 42 years. The woman who'd been my maid of honor. The woman I'd held when her mama died. The woman who'd helped me pick out furniture for this very house. They were both smiling. I opened the door slowly. What's going on? Gerald's smile got wider. Baby, I know this is going to sound strange, but Yvette and I need to talk to you about something important. Can we come in? The audacity, the pure, unfiltered audacity of this man to bring his mistress to my door and call me baby while asking to come into my house. Talk about what? My voice came out calm. That surprised me because inside I was screaming. Yvette stepped forward. She was wearing perfume, the expensive kind I'd always told her she should treat herself to. Dee, honey, we heard about your father. We're so sorry for your loss, but we need to discuss some financial matters that affect all of us. All of us. She said all of us like we were some kind of family unit. How did you hear about my father? I just found out 10 minutes ago. Gerald and Yvette looked at each other. It was quick, just a flash, but I saw it. They'd been watching Daddy, waiting. Mrs. Okafor called me, Yvette said. She knows we're close, so she thought I should know so I could support you. Lie. Mrs. Okafor barely knew Yvette, but I let them talk. Can we come in? Gerald asked again. We really need to discuss your inheritance. My inheritance. Not your father's passing, not, are you okay? My inheritance. I stepped back and let them in. I needed to see how deep this betrayal went. I needed to hear them say it out loud. They sat on my couch, the one Gerald and I had picked out together 20 years ago when his mother left us a little money. Yvette crossed her legs like she owned the place. Gerald leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, wearing his serious conversation face. "Dee," Gerald started, "I know you and your father weren't close, but that was a lot of years, a lot of hurt. The thing is, baby, we're still married, we're still a team, and whatever he left you, that's marital property. That's ours together." "Before we continue," I said, my voice steady even though my heart was pounding, "I need to ask you something, Gerald." He nodded, still wearing that fake, concerned expression. "Who were you eating breakfast with at the Marriott downtown 3 times last month?" The color drained from his face. Yvette's hand flew to her mouth, but not before I saw the guilt flash across her features. "Dee," Gerald started. "Was it business meetings?" I kept going, pulling out the credit card statement. "Because the company card would have covered those, wouldn't it? But you used our personal card, our joint account, the one with my retirement money in it." Before we continue, if this story resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next story. "Let me explain," Gerald said, standing up. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think." I looked at Yvette. "How long?" She couldn't meet my eyes. "Dee, I never meant how long." 2 years, Gerald said. He actually sounded proud of himself, like he'd accomplished something. "But that doesn't change the fact that we're married, Dolores. Whatever your father left you is half mine. That's the law." I laughed. I actually laughed right in his face. "You think you're getting half of my father's money? The same money you called blood money from a bitter old man when I wanted to visit him in the hospital last year?" "Things change," Gerald said. "People die, and the living have to move forward. Now Yvette and I—" "Yvette and you?" I interrupted. "So you're a we now?" Yvette finally looked at me. "We didn't want you to find out like this. We were going to tell you eventually, but then your father, Dee, he left you $2 million. That changes everything." $2 million. So they'd already talked to the lawyer. They'd already calculated how much they thought they could take from me. "Get out of my house," I said quietly. "Dee, be reasonable," Gerald said. "We can work this out like adults. You get the house, we split the cash, everybody moves on." "We?" I repeated. "You want to split my father's money with your mistress? In my house? Wearing my favorite perfume?" I was looking at Yvette now. "That's my perfume. The bottle I bought 2 months ago and couldn't find. You took it? You took my perfume to wear while you were sleeping with my husband?" "I think we all need to calm down," Yvette said, standing up. "Let's talk about this tomorrow when emotions aren't so high." "There's nothing to talk about tomorrow," I told them, "because by tomorrow, Gerald, you won't have access to anything. Not the house, not the bank accounts, not a single dollar of my money." Gerald laughed. "You can't just freeze me out, Dee. We're married. You need my permission for major financial decisions." "Actually," I said, "I don't. See, I've been handling all our finances for 37 years. You never wanted to be bothered with it. All those papers you signed every year. You never read them, did you?" His smile faltered. 3 years ago, I had our lawyer draw up new documents. Made me the primary account holder on everything. You signed them, remember? You were watching the game, and you just signed wherever I pointed." The smile disappeared completely. "And one more thing," I said, walking to my desk and pulling out a folder I'd been keeping for 6 months, ever since our neighbor's daughter, who works at Gerald's company, mentioned something that didn't sound right. "I hired a forensic accountant back in May. Funny thing about retirement, you got a lot of time to notice things. Like how our savings were dropping even though you said you got a raise. Like how you kept telling me not to worry about bills while you were taking money out for investments." Gerald's face went gray. Actually gray. "That accountant found some real interesting things. Like how you've been embezzling from your company for the past 4 years. Falsifying invoices, creating fake vendor accounts, moving money around. Your boss doesn't know yet, but he will. Unless you want to leave my house right now and never speak to me again." Yvette grabbed her purse. "Gerald, maybe we should—" "Oh, Yvette," I said. "Don't think I forgot about you. You're a CPA. You helped him set up those fake accounts, didn't you? That's why he needed you. Not just for the affair. He needed someone who knew how to hide money." Her face confirmed everything. "Get out of my house," I said again. "Both of you. Now." They left. They actually ran. Gerald was already on his phone, probably calling a lawyer. Yvette was crying. I locked the door behind them and sat back down at my kitchen table. The credit card statement was still there. The phone number for the lawyer was still on my notepad, and I was still the same woman who'd woken up this morning thinking her biggest problem was deciding what to make for dinner. But I wasn't that woman anymore. That woman had died the second I saw those hotel charges, the second my father's lawyer called, the second I opened my door and saw my husband standing there with my best friend, both of them smiling like wolves. I picked up the phone and called the lawyer back. "Mr. Okafor? This is Dolores Washington. I can be there in an hour, and I need you to recommend a divorce attorney, the best one you know." Then I called my daughter, Jasmine. She was going to be shocked. All 4 of my kids thought their father walked on water. They were about to find out he'd been walking through mud this whole time, dragging me with him. But that phone call would have to wait, because my doorbell rang again. I looked through the peephole and my breath caught in my throat. It was the police. 2 officers, standing on my porch, looking serious. And behind them, in handcuffs, was Gerald. I opened the door with my hand shaking so bad I almost couldn't turn the knob. "Mrs. Washington?" the shorter officer asked. He was a black man, maybe 40, with kind eyes that reminded me of my son. "I'm Officer Reginald Banks, and this is Officer Torres. We need to ask you some questions about your husband, Gerald Washington." Gerald was standing between them, hands cuffed behind his back, looking at the ground. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "What happened?" I asked, even though part of me already knew. "Ma'am, your husband's employer called us about 2 hours ago. They received an anonymous tip this morning about financial irregularities. When they started investigating, they found enough evidence to press charges immediately. We're taking him in for embezzlement, wire fraud, and theft." Anonymous tip. This morning, right after Gerald left my house with Yvette. "Did Yvette Richardson call it in?" I asked. Officer Banks looked surprised. "I can't confirm who made the report. But how did you—" "She's covering herself," I said. "She helped him do it. She's a CPA. Check her involvement." Gerald's head snapped up. "Dee, don't what?" I looked at him directly for the first time. "Don't tell the truth? Like how you've been stealing from your company for 4 years? Like how you've been sleeping with my best friend in hotels paid for with my retirement money?" Officer Torres pulled out a notepad. "Ma'am, if you have information about an accomplice—" "I have a forensic accountant's report," I said. "I hired him 6 months ago. He documented everything. I'll get you his contact information." "You've known for 6 months?" Gerald's voice cracked. "You knew and you didn't say anything?" "I was trying to figure out how deep it went," I told him. "I was trying to decide if our marriage was worth saving. Turns out it wasn't. Turns out you were planning to take my inheritance money, too." Officer Banks looked at his partner, then back at me. "Mrs. Washington, we're going to need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. But first, is there anything in the house that belongs to Mr. Washington that he might need? We can supervise while he collects personal items." "No," I said. "He can get a lawyer to arrange for his things later. Right now, I want him off my property." Gerald opened his mouth to argue, but Officer Torres shook his head. "Sir, don't make this harder than it needs to be." They walked him to the patrol car. The whole neighborhood was watching now. Mrs. Okafor from 3 houses down was standing on her porch. The Reeves family across the street had come outside. Even old Mr. Baptiste, who never left his house, was peering through his window. 37 years in this neighborhood. 37 years of being the respectable couple, the ones who hosted the church potlucks and organized the block parties. And now everyone was watching my husband get arrested in our driveway. I didn't care. Let them watch. Let them see what happens to men who think their wives are too old and too tired to fight back. I went back inside and called Jasmine. She answered on the first ring. "Mama, I was just about to call you. Daddy texted me something strange about Grandpa Clarence dying and you acting crazy. What's going on?" Daddy texted her. Of course he did, getting the children on his side before I could tell them the truth. "Your father is being arrested right now for embezzling from his company," I said. "And I'm divorcing him because he's been having an affair with Yvette for 2 years. Silence. Long, heavy silence. "Mama, that's not funny." "I'm not joking, Jasmine. The police just took him away in handcuffs. It'll probably be on the news by tonight." "No," Jasmine said. "No, Mama. Daddy wouldn't. Yvette is your best friend. This doesn't make sense. I have credit card statements showing hotel charges. I have a forensic accountant's report showing the embezzlement. And your father showed up at my door this morning with Yvette, trying to claim half of your grandfather's inheritance before I'd even had time to grieve." Another long silence. Then, "How much did Grandpa Clarence leave you?" My heart sank. That's what she asked. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What do you need?" How much money? "I don't know yet," I lied. "I have to meet with the lawyer." "Well, Mama, you need to be careful. Daddy's right that it's marital property. You can't just keep everything for yourself. We're your children. We should have a say in—" I hung up. I actually hung up on my own daughter. The phone rang again immediately. I didn't answer. It rang 5 more times in the next 10 minutes. I turned it off. I needed to get to the lawyer's office. I needed to protect what my father had left me before my whole family descended like vultures. Mr. Okafor's office was in a nice building downtown, the kind with marble floors and brass fixtures. His receptionist, a young black woman with natural hair twisted into an elegant updo, smiled when I gave my name. "Mrs. Washington, Mr. Okafor is expecting you. Can I get you some water? Coffee?" "Water would be nice. Thank you." She led me to a conference room where Mr. Okafor was waiting. He was older than I expected, maybe 75, with gray hair and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Washington," he said, standing to shake my hand. "Please, sit down. I'm very sorry for your loss, and I apologize for the urgency, but your father's instructions were very specific about timing." "What kind of timing?" He opened a folder. "Your father passed away at 6:47 p.m. yesterday evening. He specified that you were to be notified immediately and that all transfers should be completed within 72 hours of his death. He was very concerned about people trying to claim portions of his estate." "People like my husband?" Mr. Okafor looked at me carefully. "Your father specifically mentioned your husband in his will. He said, and I quote, 'If Gerald Washington attempts to claim any portion of this inheritance, I want it documented that this money is my daughter's alone, earned through my own labor and investments, and I expressly exclude him and any claims he might make.'" I felt tears coming, but I blinked them back. We hadn't spoken in 15 years. "He knew," Mr. Okafor said softly. "He kept track of you. He knew about your children, your grandchildren, your work at the church. He knew you were unhappy, and he wanted to give you a way out." The tears came then. I couldn't stop them. Mr. Okafor handed me a tissue box and waited patiently while I cried for the father I'd lost, for the marriage that had been a lie, for the friend who'd betrayed me, for the years I'd wasted being loyal to people who didn't deserve it. "There's more," he said when I'd composed myself. "Your father didn't just leave you money, he left you property. A beach house in Hilton Head, South Carolina. He bought it 5 years ago. He told me he hoped you'd use it to start over someday." "A beach house?" "Fully furnished. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, right on the water. He made sure the property taxes were paid in advance for 5 years. He wanted you to have a place where no one could bother you, where you could be free. Free. I'd forgotten what that word even meant. The liquid assets total $2 million, Mr. Okafor continued. There's also a life insurance policy for $500,000, and the beach house is worth approximately $1.2 million. Your father was a careful man. He invested well. I couldn't breathe. My father, who I'd thought hated me, who I'd been too proud to reach out to, had been planning my escape for years. He left letters, Mr. Okafor said, pulling out a sealed envelope. One for you. He wrote it 3 weeks ago, when he knew he was dying. My hands trembled as I took the envelope. My name was written on the front in Daddy's careful handwriting. Would you like privacy? Mr. Okafor asked. I nodded. He left the room quietly. I opened the envelope and pulled out 3 pages of lined paper, filled with Daddy's writing. My dear Dolores, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I hope that brings you some peace instead of pain. I know we haven't spoken since your mama's funeral, and that's on both of us. I was too harsh with you that day. I should have held you instead of judging you. I should have understood that leaving a marriage is harder than staying, especially when you've got children and a church family and a whole life built up around it. But I want you to know I never stopped loving you. I never stopped checking on you. Mrs. Okafor, you remember Amara, don't you? She moved in next door to me 8 years ago, kept me updated. She told me when you made head nurse. She told me when your grandbabies were born. She told me when you stopped smiling at church. That's when I knew Gerald was getting worse. That's when I knew I had to do something. This money isn't about buying forgiveness, baby girl. This money is about giving you choices. Your mama never had choices. She stayed with me even when I was difficult, even when I made mistakes, because she didn't have anywhere else to go. I don't want that for you. I don't want you to wake up one more day in a house that feels like a prison. The beach house in Hilton Head, I bought that for you. I went there every summer these past 5 years, and every time I sat on that porch watching the ocean, I pictured you there. I pictured you finally resting, finally free. I know your children might not understand. I know Gerald will try to take this from you. But Bernard Okafor is a good lawyer, and I've made sure everything is ironclad. This is yours. Only yours. I'm sorry I wasted 15 years being too stubborn to pick up the phone. I'm sorry I let my pride keep me from my daughter. But I hope this gift tells you what I should have said all along. You deserved better than what you got. And it's not too late to claim it. I love you, Dolores. I always have. Your daddy. I was sobbing when Mr. Okafor came back in. He didn't say anything, just sat down and waited. He loved me, I finally said. Very much. He talked about you all the time. There was a knock on the door. The receptionist poked her head in. Mr. Okafor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation in the lobby. A woman named Yvette Richardson is here demanding to see Mrs. Washington. She says it's urgent. And there's a man with her. She says he's Mrs. Washington's son. My son. Which one? Tell them Mrs. Washington is in a private meeting and cannot be disturbed, Mr. Okafor said firmly. Sir, they're refusing to leave. The son says he has a legal right to be involved in his grandfather's estate distribution. He's threatening to call the police if we don't let him in. I stood up. Which son? He said his name is Antoine Washington. My youngest. 29 years old, and my baby boy. The one who called me every Sunday. The one who brought his kids over every weekend. The one I thought loved me more than he loved money. Let them in, I said. Mr. Okafor frowned. Mrs. Washington, you don't have to... Let them in. I want to hear what they have to say. The receptionist left. A minute later, Antoine walked in with Yvette right behind him. My son looked furious. Yvette looked desperate. Mama, what are you doing? Antoine demanded. Dad calls me crying, saying you're trying to ruin his life, and now you're hiding out with lawyers trying to steal Grandpa's money? Steal? It was left to me, Antoine. But we're family, he said. That money should be shared. Dad helped take care of Grandpa before you two stopped talking. He drove him to doctor appointments. Your father drove Grandpa to exactly 3 appointments, all in 1997, and complained about it for months afterward, I said. Don't rewrite history to justify stealing from me. Yvette stepped forward. Dee, please, let's talk about this like adults. Gerald made mistakes, I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can all walk away with something fair. Fair? I looked at her. You want to talk about fair? You slept with my husband for 2 years. You helped him steal from his company. You wore my perfume while you were betraying me. And now you want fair? I turned him in, Yvette said desperately. I called his company this morning because I knew it was wrong. Doesn't that count for something? You turned him in to save yourself. The second you realized I knew about the embezzlement, you threw Gerald under the bus to avoid going to prison with him. That's not redemption, Yvette. That's cowardice. Antoine looked between us, confusion crossing his face. What embezzlement? What are you talking about? Your father has been stealing from his company for 4 years, I said. He was arrested this morning, and Yvette helped him do it. My son's face went pale. No, Dad wouldn't. I have documentation. The police have evidence. It's not a rumor or a mistake. It's fact. Antoine sat down heavily in a chair. Mama, if Dad goes to prison, what happens to us? To the house? To his money? I finished. Because that's what you're really asking, isn't it? Not, are you okay, Mama? Not, how can I help you? Just, what happens to the money? That's not fair, Antoine said, but he couldn't look at me. Mr. Okafor, I said, please explain to my son and Mrs. Bailly Richardson what my father's will says about my husband and any claims against my inheritance. Mr. Okafor did. He was thorough and cold and perfect. By the time he finished, Yvette was crying and Antoine looked like he wanted to disappear. You need to leave now, I said, both of you. Mama, Antoine started. Get out, before I call security. They left. Yvette was sobbing. Antoine looked back once, but I just stared at him until he walked through the door. When they were gone, I sat back down. My whole body ached. My head hurt. My heart felt like someone had taken a knife to it. Mrs. Washington, Mr. Okafor said gently, would you like to continue this tomorrow? We can. No, I said. I want to finish this today. I want every paper signed, every account transferred, every lock changed. I want to be done. He nodded and pulled out more documents. We worked for 3 hours. By the time we finished, everything my father had left me was legally mine and completely protected. Gerald couldn't touch it. My children couldn't claim it. It was mine alone. I was signing the last paper when my phone buzzed. I'd turned it back on to call a locksmith. There was a text message from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Washington, this is Officer Banks. We arrested Yvette Richardson an hour ago. She's being charged as an accomplice. Thought you'd want to know. Also, your husband's bail hearing is set for tomorrow at 9 a.m. His lawyer plans to argue that his wife is hiding assets and that he needs access to marital funds for his defense. You might want to be there. I showed the message to Mr. Okafor. I'll be there, he said. And I'll bring every document we signed today. Gerald Washington won't get a penny. I thanked him and left his office. It was almost 6 p.m. The sun was setting. I'd been dealing with lawyers and police and betrayal for nearly 8 hours straight. I got in my car and started driving. Not home. I couldn't go home yet. Instead, I drove to Rising Star Baptist Church. Service was over, but Pastor Kimbrough's car was still in the parking lot. I found him in his office preparing for Wednesday Bible study. Sister Dolores, he said, smiling. Then he saw my face. What happened? I told him everything. The affair, the embezzlement, the arrests, my father's death, the inheritance, my children's betrayal. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "What do you need?" he finally asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Prayer, maybe, or permission to be angry, or I don't know." "You have permission," he said. "You have permission to be angry, to grieve, to rest, to start over. You have permission to protect yourself. And you have permission to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family." "Even my children?" "Even your children. The Bible says to honor your father and mother. It doesn't say mothers have to accept disrespect and greed from their children." We prayed together. Not for Gerald's soul or for my family to reunite. We prayed for my strength, for my peace, for my future. I left the church feeling lighter than I had in years. I drove home. There was a car in my driveway I didn't recognize. A silver Mercedes. I parked on the street and walked carefully to my front door. Before I could reach it, it opened. My oldest daughter, Rochelle, stepped out. She was 41, a corporate lawyer in New York, and she looked furious. "We need to talk," she said. "Now, because I just found out something about Daddy's arrest that you need to know." She held up her phone. On the screen was a news article. "Local business executive arrested for embezzlement. Investigation reveals conspiracy involving multiple family members." Multiple family members. "Mama," Rochelle said, her voice shaking, "they're saying Uncle Vernon was involved too. They're saying this goes back almost 20 years. And they're saying Grandpa Clarence knew about it." My brother Vernon. My father. 20 years. "That's impossible," I said. Rochelle's eyes filled with tears. "Mama, there's more. They found emails. Daddy was planning to have you declared mentally incompetent. He had a doctor ready to testify. He was going to put you in a nursing home and take control of everything, including Grandpa's inheritance." The world tilted. I reached for the doorframe to steady myself. "When?" I whispered. "Next week. He was filing the paperwork next week." That's why he'd shown up this morning with Yvette. That's why he'd been so confident about the money. He wasn't planning to divorce me and split assets. He was planning to lock me away and take everything. I sat down on my porch steps because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. Rochelle sat beside me, still holding her phone. "How long have you known?" I asked. "I found out 2 hours ago. One of my law school classmates works for the prosecutor's office here. She called me when she saw the name Washington in the files." "Mama, I got on the first flight out of LaGuardia." My oldest daughter, the one who'd moved to New York 15 years ago and only came home for Christmas. The one who sent cards but rarely called. She'd dropped everything and come home. "Does your father know you're here?" "I went to see him at the county jail first." Rochelle's voice was hard. "I told him if he didn't tell me everything, I'd make sure he got the maximum sentence. So he told me." "Tell me," I said. Rochelle took a deep breath. "It started 19 years ago. Uncle Vernon worked in hospital administration. He had access to medical records, billing systems. He figured out a way to create fake patients, submit fake insurance claims, and pocket the money. He brought Daddy in because he needed someone to help launder it through a legitimate business." "Gerald's company." "Yes. They'd been doing it for almost 15 years before Grandpa Clarence found out. That was about 4 years ago, right before you and Grandpa stopped talking." My stomach dropped. Daddy knew? He confronted Uncle Vernon, threatened to turn him in. But Uncle Vernon told him it would destroy you. His only daughter would be married to a criminal and your brother would go to prison too. So Grandpa made a deal. He told them he'd stay quiet if they stopped immediately, and if they put half the stolen money into an investment account for you. He was protecting me. He was always protecting you, Mama. But Daddy and Uncle Vernon didn't stop. They just got better at hiding it. And when Grandpa found out they'd kept going, that's when he cut contact with everyone. He couldn't tell you without destroying the family, and he couldn't watch them destroy you either. So he left me the money to make up for it. He left you the money so you could escape, Rochelle said. The beach house, the inheritance. He spent 4 years making sure you'd be financially safe when the truth came out. Because he knew it would. He told Uncle Vernon 2 months ago that he was dying and that he'd already given everything to his lawyer with instructions to protect you. That's when Daddy and Yvette started planning to have you declared incompetent. I couldn't speak. My father hadn't abandoned me. He'd been building me a lifeboat while my husband and brother were drilling holes in the ship. Uncle Vernon died 3 weeks ago, Rochelle continued. Heart attack. The prosecutor thinks that's what made Daddy panic. With Uncle Vernon gone, he knew the scheme would unravel, and he'd be the only one left to take the fall. That's why he accelerated the plan to control your assets. And Yvette? She's been his girlfriend for 5 years, not 2. The 2-year thing was a lie to make it seem less calculated. She was in on everything from the beginning. She helped them hide the money, create the fake accounts, plan your commitment. 5 years. My best friend of 42 years had been sleeping with my husband and helping him steal for 5 years. Mama, there's something else. Rochelle's voice broke. Antoine knew. What? Not about the embezzlement, but about the plan to have you committed. Daddy promised him a share of the inheritance if he backed up the incompetency claim. Said you'd been acting forgetful, confused, making bad financial decisions. My baby boy. The one who called every Sunday. He'd been willing to let them lock me away for money. What about Jasmine and Terrence? I asked, afraid of the answer. Jasmine didn't know the details, but Daddy told her you were becoming difficult and might need special care soon. She was starting to believe him. Terrence... Rochelle paused. Terrence called me yesterday after he heard about the arrest. He said something felt wrong. He said he remembered Grandpa Clarence telling him 2 years ago to always look out for you, that you were stronger than anyone gave you credit for. He's on his way here from Chicago. 1 out of 4. One child who still had a conscience. The bail hearing is tomorrow at 9, Rochelle said. Daddy's lawyer is going to argue that he needs access to marital funds for his defense, and that you're hiding assets because you're mentally unstable. They're going to try to paint you as a vindictive, confused old woman who can't manage money. I'll be there, I said. And I'll show them exactly how stable and competent I am. Rochelle smiled for the first time. I'm coming with you, and I'm bringing every piece of evidence I can find. Mama, when I'm done, Daddy won't just lose his bail hearing, he'll lose everything. We went inside. Rochelle had already started working. My dining room table was covered with papers, her laptop, legal pads covered in notes. I've been documenting everything for the past 2 hours, she said. Medical records showing you're perfectly healthy. Financial statements showing you've been managing the household accounts competently for decades. Testimony from your employer about your excellent work record. Character references from Pastor Kimbrough and half the church. By the time we walk into that courtroom, we'll have enough evidence to bury Daddy's case. My daughter. My brilliant, fierce daughter who I'd thought had forgotten about me. Why are you doing this? I asked. She looked up, confused. What do you mean? You're my mother. But you left. You barely called. I thought... You thought I didn't care? Rochelle's eyes filled with tears. Mama, I left because I couldn't watch Daddy disrespect you anymore. I couldn't sit at Sunday dinners and listen to him talk to you like you were his servant. I couldn't watch you shrink yourself to make him comfortable. It broke my heart. So I left, and I called less, because every conversation with you reminded me that you were still there. Still accepting treatment you didn't deserve. You should have told me. I tried. Remember 5 years ago when I invited you to come stay with me for a month? Daddy convinced you to say no, said I was trying to turn you against him. Remember 3 years ago when I offered to pay for you to go back to school, get your master's degree? Daddy said it was a waste of time, that you were too old. Every time I tried to pull you away, he pulled you back. She was right. I remembered those conversations. I remembered choosing Gerald's comfort over my own dreams every single time. "I'm sorry," I said. "No." Rochelle stood up and hugged me tight. "You don't apologize. You survived. That's what matters. And now, you're going to thrive." We worked until midnight, building my case. Then Rochelle ordered us Chinese food. And we ate it sitting on the living room floor, talking like we hadn't talked in years. She told me about her life in New York, her job at a big firm, her girlfriend Keisha, who she'd been afraid to tell me about. I told her about the garden I'd been planning, the novel I'd always wanted to write, the trip to Paris I'd dreamed about since I was 20. "You're going to do all of it," Rochelle said. "The garden, the book, Paris, all of it, because you're free now, Mama, maybe for the first time in your life." I fell asleep on the couch that night with Rochelle on the other end, both of us covered in my grandmother's quilts, and for the first time in months, I didn't have nightmares. The bail hearing was at 9 a.m. We arrived at 8:30. Mr. Okafor met us in the hallway outside the courtroom, carrying 3 briefcases full of documents. "Mrs. Washington, are you ready?" he asked. "I'm ready." Gerald's lawyer was a sharp-looking man in an expensive suit. He kept glancing at Rochelle and Mr. Okafor nervously, like he knew he was outmatched. The judge was a black woman, maybe 60, with gray locks and reading glasses on a chain. Judge Harriet Townsend. I'd read about her in the paper. She was known for being tough and fair. Gerald was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked terrible. His eyes were red, his face was unshaven, and when he saw me sitting in the front row with Rochelle and Mr. Okafor, he actually flinched. "Your Honor," his lawyer began, "my client is requesting reasonable bail and access to marital funds for his defense. His wife has frozen all their joint accounts and is preventing him from—" "Objection," Mr. Okafor stood. "Mrs. Washington has not frozen marital accounts. She has protected her own inheritance, which was left to her specifically and exclusively by her late father. Mr. Washington has no legal claim to those funds." "But he needs money for his defense," Gerald's lawyer argued. "His wife is being vindictive and—" "Your Honor," Rochelle stood, "may I present evidence?" Judge Townsend looked intrigued. "Proceed." Rochelle walked forward with a folder. "This is a psychiatric evaluation of Dolores Washington, completed yesterday by Dr. Imani Chen, a licensed psychiatrist with 30 years of experience. It shows that Mrs. Washington is mentally sound, competent, and fully capable of managing her own affairs. This evaluation was necessary because Mr. Washington's defense strategy includes painting his wife as mentally unstable." She handed copies to the judge and to Gerald's lawyer. "Furthermore," Rochelle continued, "we have evidence that Mr. Washington, with the help of his girlfriend Yvette Richardson, who is also under arrest, was planning to have Mrs. Washington declared incompetent and institutionalized so he could gain control of her inheritance. We have emails, text messages, and testimony from the doctor they were planning to pay off." The judge's expression darkened. "Is this true, counselor?" Gerald's lawyer shuffled papers. "Your Honor, I was not aware of—" "We also have evidence," Mr. Okafor added, standing, "that Mr. Washington has been embezzling not just from his employer, but from his wife's retirement account. He has systematically stolen from her for years while she worked double shifts as a nurse to support their family. Mrs. Washington is not vindictive. She is protecting herself from a man who has spent decades exploiting her." Judge Townsend looked at Gerald. "Mr. Washington, do you have anything to say?" Gerald stood slowly. "Your Honor, I made mistakes, but I'm still her husband. I deserve—" "You deserve nothing," the judge interrupted. "You stole from your employer, you conspired to commit fraud, and you planned to have your own wife institutionalized to steal her inheritance. The only thing you deserve is exactly what you're going to get." She looked at the prosecutor. "What's the state requesting?" "Bail set at $1 million, Your Honor. And we're adding charges of conspiracy to commit fraud against Mrs. Washington, attempted exploitation of a vulnerable person, and financial abuse. Granted, Judge Townsend said. Bail is set at $1 million. Mr. Washington, you are also ordered to have no contact with your wife, directly or indirectly. If you violate this order, I will personally ensure you remain in custody until trial. Do you understand? Gerald's face crumpled. I can't make $1 million bail. I don't have... Perhaps you should have thought of that before you stole from everyone who trusted you, the judge said coldly. Next case. They led Gerald away. He tried to look back at me, but I didn't meet his eyes. I was done looking at him. Outside the courthouse, Rochelle hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. You did it, Mama. You won. We won, I corrected her. I couldn't have done this without you. Terrence was waiting by my car, my second oldest, 38 years old, with his father's face but his grandfather's eyes. He hugged me tight. Mama, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have known. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. What are you going to do? He asked. I thought about Daddy's letter, about the beach house in Hilton Head, about the dreams I'd put away for 37 years. I'm going to sell this house, I said. I'm going to move to South Carolina. I'm going to plant a garden, write a book, and learn to be happy. And I'm going to do it without apologizing to anyone. Rochelle smiled. Can we visit? Anytime you want, both of you. Over the next 3 weeks, everything moved fast. Gerald's trial date was set. Yvette took a plea deal and agreed to testify against him. Antoine called once, asking for money. I didn't call back. Jasmine sent a long email apologizing, explaining that she'd been manipulated. I wrote back and told her I'd consider reconciliation after she spent some time thinking about why she was so quick to believe her father's lies about me. She hasn't responded yet. I put the house on the market and it sold in 5 days. Pastor Kimbrough held a special service to pray for my new beginning. Half the church came. They brought me casseroles, gift cards, and hugs. Mrs. Okafor helped me pack. She told me stories about my father, about how he'd sit on his porch and talk about me, about how proud he was of my nursing career, about how he'd kept every church bulletin that mentioned my name. He loved you so much, she said. He just didn't know how to show it toward the end. I know, I said, and I love him too. The day before I left for Hilton Head, I went to Rising Star Baptist one last time. Pastor Kimbrough met me in the sanctuary. Sister Dolores, he said, are you at peace? I thought about the question. Really thought about it. I'm getting there, I said. I'm angry sometimes. I'm sad sometimes. But I'm also free. And that feels like a miracle. It is a miracle, he agreed. The miracle of a second chance. I drove to Hilton Head with Rochelle in the passenger seat. Terrence followed in his car, bringing some of my furniture. We stopped at a Bojangles in Georgia, and I ate a chicken biscuit while watching the sun set through the window. The beach house was perfect. White walls, blue shutters, a porch that wrapped around 3 sides. The ocean was 50 feet from the back door. Daddy had left everything ready, fresh linens on the beds, a fully stocked kitchen, books on the shelves, books about gardening, writing, travel, books he'd bought for me, hoping I'd come. He knew you'd make it here eventually, Rochelle said, running her hand along the porch railing. He believed in you. That night, I sat on the porch and watched the waves. Rochelle and Terrence had gone to get groceries, and I was alone for the first time in weeks. I pulled out my phone and looked at the pictures from my old life. The house I'd sold, the church where I'd taught Sunday school. 37 years in those photos. 37 years of being who everyone else needed me to be. I deleted them. Not out of bitterness, but out of freedom. That woman was gone. I was someone new now. My phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Okafor. Gerald's trial starts next month. You don't have to attend unless you want to testify. The prosecution has more than enough evidence without you." I wrote back, "I'll be there, not for him, for me, so I can watch justice happen and then close that chapter forever." Another text came through, this one from Pastor Kimbrough. "The church already misses you, but we're so happy you're where you need to be. You earned this peace." I looked out at the ocean. The moon was rising, turning the water silver. Somewhere behind me, Daddy's house, my house now, glowed with warm light. I was 68 years old. My husband was going to prison. My best friend had betrayed me. 2 of my children had chosen money over their mother. My father was gone. But I was free. I had money. I had a home. I had time. I had dreams I'd never allowed myself to dream before. And tomorrow, I was going to wake up in my own house, make coffee on my own schedule, and start planning the rest of my life, a life that belonged entirely to me. For the first time in 37 years, I smiled and meant it. Gerald was convicted 3 months later. 22 years in federal prison. Yvette got 8 years. The news made the papers, but by then I was too busy living my new life to care much about my old one. I planted a garden, tomatoes, peppers, collard greens, herbs. I joined a book club in town and made new friends who didn't know anything about my past. I started writing that novel, sitting on my porch every morning with coffee and the sound of waves. Rochelle visits twice a month, bringing Keisha with her. They're talking about getting married next year at the beach house. I told them I'd be honored to host. Terrence came for Thanksgiving with his wife and kids. We ate turkey and watched the ocean and didn't talk about Gerald once. Jasmine sent a card on my birthday. No money, no excuses, just "I'm sorry and I love you, and I'm trying to be better." It's a start. Antoine sent nothing. Some wounds don't heal. But I'm okay with that now. I learned that you can't force people to love you the way you deserve to be loved. You can only love yourself enough to walk away when they won't. I think about Daddy every day. I wish I could tell him thank you. I wish I could tell him I understand why he did what he did. I wish I could tell him that his gift didn't just save me financially, it saved my soul. But I think somehow he knows. I think when I sit on this porch watching the sunrise, when I dig in the garden he planned for me, when I write stories about women finding freedom, I think he knows I'm finally home. That's all for today's story. If this touched your heart, please subscribe for more stories and drop a comment. We read every single one.